War began, one for brains. The United States and the Soviet Union weren't chasing soldiers anymore. They were hunting scientists. Hidden in the wreckage of Nazi Germany were weapons decades ahead of anything the Allies had ever seen. Rockets that touched the edge of space, jet engines faster than sound, chemical nightmares that could wipe out cities. Whoever controlled those minds would control the future. And America made sure it did, through a secret plan called Operation Paperclip. Truman signed it quietly in 1945. On paper, Nazi party members were banned from entering the U.S. In reality, thousands of them were secretly invited. Intelligence officers clipped a paperclip to each useful scientist's file, one small mark that meant, don't prosecute, protect. Their new mission? Trade their swastikas for suits and build America's next generation of weapons. The prize catch was Wernher von Braun, Hitler's rocket genius. His V-2 missile had terrorized London, killing thousands. But in 1945, he surrendered not to Moscow, but to the Americans. Within months, he was in Texas, working for the U.S. Army. Within years, he was running NASA's rocket program. Yes, the man who built Hitler's vengeance weapon became the man who built the rocket that sent us to the moon. But there's a part of the story they never taught you in school. Many of these scientists weren't just engineers doing their jobs. Some had used slave labor from concentration camps. Some had tested chemicals on prisoners. U.S. officials knew and covered it up. They rewrote resumes, scrubbed Nazi pasts, and introduced them to the public as refugee experts. America, the nation that fought to destroy fascism, was now secretly paying its architects. The irony didn't end there. Back home, GIs returned believing they'd defeated evil. They never guessed that the man designing their country's next missile once saluted Hitler. A few insiders tried to blow the whistle, but every time they were silenced, because by 1946 the Cold War had begun, and in Washington, morality came second to survival. Meanwhile, the Soviets were kidnapping German scientists of their own. When the USSR launched Sputnik in 1957, America panicked. Suddenly, von Braun was a national hero. Magazines called him the man who gave us space. No one mentioned who he'd given rockets to first. And Paperclip didn't stop at rockets. Doctors who'd performed human experiments in Dachau were hired for U.S. bioweapons projects. Aviation specialists who froze prisoners to study hypothermia now advised the Air Force on pilot safety. Gestapo psychologists ended up shaping CIA interrogation programs, the roots of MK Ultra. America hadn't just imported knowledge, it had imported a mindset that progress justifies anything. Still, the results were undeniable. Those scientists gave birth to the space age, to satellites, missiles, jetliners, even early computers. Operation Paperclip helped make the United States a superpower. So yes, it worked, but at what cost? When Congress finally learned the truth decades later, officials claimed it was necessary, better to hire Nazis than let the Soviets have them. But declassified files told a darker story. The U.S. hadn't just borrowed talent from the Reich, it had absorbed part of it. Some paperclip scientists retired rich, appearing on TV, signing autographs, while their victims' names were lost to history. And maybe that's why this story still hits so hard. It exposes America's greatest contradiction, a country that defeated fascism but couldn't resist using its spoils. Without von Braun, there might not have been Apollo missions, but every launch carried ghosts. The victims who built the first rockets by hand, in tunnels, under whips and floodlights. When we look up at the moon, we see triumph, but buried beneath that light is the shadow of Paperclip, the deal that traded justice for progress. Because in the end, some victories aren't won on the battlefield. They're bought in silence.